Good morning, everyone. It must be Saturday because it's walk and talk time. Good morning, everyone. How's everyone doing this morning?
Hey, good morning. Nice and brisk in Michigan.
Good morning.
Good morning. Nice and brisk in Michigan.
Florida.
Sunny Florida. All right, guys. Well, it is Saturday morning. It's 8 o'clock, and we're going to get hopping here. You know, last week I mentioned that I might comment on something that is kind of a surprising comment. And so, as some of you know, I'm taking some certifications in the field of integrative oncology, and it's really a fascinating field. You know, in HealthPointe, we deal so much with overall metabolic health that certainly impacts type 2 diabetes and overall wellness. And as it turns out, there's an awful lot regarding metabolic health as it relates to cancer. And in no way, shape, or form do we prescribe, diagnose, or cure at any point, but we certainly do look at our health. And in my studies, I heard an interesting comment by one of the leading doctors that it was an intriguing comment. And basically, the way he framed it is, if you took everyone in that had cancer right now, changed nothing else except that you had a magic bullet that could cure that cancer, skin cancer, breast cancer, liver cancer, etc. But all you had was the ability to cure that. What would be the average life expectancy of that cancer patient if that was done? That answer is pretty intriguing. And if I have time later in the program, I'll unpack that a little bit. But first, we're going to do what we do, and that is go around the horn. And I heard Carol in sunny Florida, so I'm going to go to you, Carol.
Well, thank you. And first of all, happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Eric. Happy birthday to you.
Thank you.
We know that yesterday was your birthday. And
thank you.
You're getting up early and being with us this morning. So I'm glad you put me on first because this is our community yard sale today. So I'm not sure when I'm going to be heading into here. So, but you were talking about the certification that you're taking. And first of all, I'm going to stop here so I can talk clearly and people can understand me. So you'll have to excuse the traffic. But anyway, you were talking about the number of years you would add to your life. And I'm very anxious to hear that because I noticed you kind of gave us the little question, but you didn't give us the answer. So hopefully by the end of the time, we'll have an answer. But even if it was a year or two, wouldn't it be worth it? If you knew that you could add on an extra few years in your life, which I have a feeling it might be a lot more than that, to do the things you want to do with your loved ones. I think that is absolutely priceless. So the beautiful thing about HealthPointe is that Eric and I have discussed this so much, relates back to the things we learn in HealthPointe and why it's such a beautiful lifestyle program. And we always say this isn't a diet, this is a lifestyle. And boy, it just burns it in every article, every podcast, every walk and talk. It burns in the fact that this is a lifestyle and it can add years to your life, I believe. Again, I'm not making any claims. I'm just stating some basic healthy habits. But back in the long time ago day, when I was in young mom, before the Amway business, I was actually a dressmaker. And one of the things I always remembered about dressmaking was it was easier to make something from scratch than it was to take something apart and remake it. And I think that this is something that we have to remember as much as possible with our HealthPointe program, is if we can do something from scratch rather than having to remake it, it's always a lot easier. Now, some of us are not in the situation we can do that, perhaps because of years, perhaps because of conditions, whatever, it doesn't matter. But the important thing is to start today. And this morning, as I was doing my meditation and prayer and stuff like that, I came across an article from one of my favorite doctors, Dr. Vivian, and she called this the 8 resolutions for better health. Now, she said it was New Year's because it was right around New Year's time, but you can have New Year's resolutions anytime you want. And I thought they were very simple, but I wanted to just real quickly review these with you. The first one was build a healthier environment. And she does these little synopsis at the bottom of the article. So in order to keep this in a timely fashion, I'm just going to go to the synopsis. And she says, change your surroundings to support your health goals. Fill your pantry with healthy snacks. Keep an exercise area ready and spend more grocery time in the produce aisle. And isn't that what we teach in HealthPointe, is to walk the peripheral of your store and spend most of your time there. The other thing I would like to say, and I've said this many times before, is don't go to the store hungry, because when you go hungry, you're going to pick poor choices. If you go where your blood sugar is stable, you've had a snack, you've had your meal, whatever, you're going to make a lot healthier choices. And it's the same way I always say when you're coming home from work. Don't come home and be starving when you walk in the house, because when you cook your meals, you're going to be putting anything in your mouth because you're starving. So try not to get to that stage. And with the HealthPointe program, you eat so often that you should never really be starving like that. Then the second thing was read food labels. And of course, we certainly know that, you take your carbs, which we're tracking, you minus your fiber, you minus your sugar alcohol, and then you come up with your usable carbs. And so those are the same things that can apply to the interior of your store. And also, even when you're picking fruits and vegetables, try to stay with lower glycemic index. In other words, maybe lay a little lower on things like corn, mangoes, bananas. Eat them, but eat them sparingly because they're much higher in sugar and starch. Then the third one was to reduce your screen time. And boy, aren't we all guilty of this? I mean, I about live on my phone. And it says track your screen time and replace some of that time with bone healthy activities. That means getting up, moving around, because in most cases, when you're on your screen time, you're sitting. Even on your cellular phone, which you're supposed to be able to move around, that's, many times people are sitting when they're talking on that. The other one is go organic. And we know the importance of, as much as possible, eating organic. And Eric gave us a new label that started with a 6 last week, which I thought was interesting. I was not familiar with that. I had given you one that started with a 4. With a 3. So you want to stay away from those. Try to eat organic, which has a 9 starting with it. And the other thing, even if it's organic, I have a little container, a little spray bottle, and I mix our liquid organic concentrate, LOC, with water. I do not a lot of LOC, but a little bit in a bottle, and I spray my vegetables and then rinse them off with my e-spring water, even if they're organic, because and especially if they're not, because there's so many chemicals and pesticides and things that they spray on your vegetables. And so if you're eating a lot of fruit and vegetables and you're not washing them off, basically what you're doing is you're eating a lot of pesticides. So the more organic you can buy, the better. And then the fifth one is meditate. And that's what I do every morning. I get up in the morning, I get up a little earlier and build that time in. One of the things you want to do is make an appointment with your spiritual self. And whether that be meditation, prayer, reading, all those things, whatever helps you to keep your mental frame of mind healthy will just be so much more helpful for you during the day, because we know stressors are one of the worst things if you're on a healthy program and trying to lose weight. because that just racks up the cortisol and the stress hormones. It plays havoc with your sleep. So there's just all kinds of things that if you are in a healthy mindset, which is a word we use a lot, you're going to be a lot more successful in losing your weight. Then the sixth one is get social. And that means get out and do things that are fun. Don't be, just kind of closing yourself in your office or your computer or whatever. Get out, get involved. Sometimes it's just go shopping, just go walk the mall, just get around people. One of the biggest dangers that we had with COVID-19 was everybody was locked up. And you saw what happened. Everybody put weight on. And so we don't have COVID-19 anymore. So it's about time we all got out the door every day, get out the door and do something, whether it's walk around the block, go to the store, go visit a neighbor, do something nice for someone, go to church. I don't care what it is, just get out the door. And then the seventh one is build. And the other thing about getting out the door is get dressed up. This is another thing that we found with COVID. People sitting around their computers in their jammies and their business shirt on top. Well, I'll tell you what, that doesn't do anything for your psyche. You have to get dressed up. And whether it be get dressed up once a week when you go to church, I don't care what it is, wherever, put something nice on, because what that'll do is it will make you accountable to yourself that first of all, that nice outfit still fits. And second of all, if it doesn't, then you nip it in the bud. But psychologically, putting on, for women, putting on some jewelry and a nice dress or a nice pair of pants and a top, just get out there and get dressed up, because it will do wonders for your psyche. The seventh one is build accountability. And of course, lest I say any more, one of the most beautiful things about our HealthPointe program is our HealthPointe coach. And I think far too many times people go on the program and they just hum-ha about the coaching and the accountability. Well, if we charged $1,000 a month, you wouldn't be so ho-hum. But unfortunately, we don't. And so you have to put that $1,000 value on it yourself and make sure that you're doing it. And then the eighth one is resolve to be gentle with yourself. And that means conquer your negative thoughts. And the book, let's see, what was it called again? Manage Your Negative Thoughts by Dr. Daniel Amen, that I've been really, really promoting, is a small book. But one of the first things he does is he goes through how people look at themselves when they're in a depressed, overweight, challenged, stressed out situation. They look at themselves very negatively. And sometimes at the HealthPointe program, it is not a straight up the stairs program. Sometimes we do something right, and then maybe something we do wrong, and then we do 5 things right, and then we slip a little. Well, when you slip, don't sit there and be beating yourself up in the corner and taking all that precious time. We always say when the wheel falls off, get off the wagon, put the wheel back on, get back on the wagon and continue on. And with the HealthPointe program, be accountable to your coach, bone up to what you did wrong. Your coach can help you through it. They're never going to bawl you out. This is not teacher student. This is somebody that just wants to take you by the hand and help you become healthier. And so with that, Eric, I've gone on way much longer than I needed to, but I just wanted to open the door and say, hey, be happy, have a wonderful day, and enjoy your life. It's too short not to.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. And boy, I tell you, you just always come with so much amazing content. You're talking about one of the points, and I think I counted there was 8 points there, and it was incredible. One of the points in there that I noted down was about get social. And that for some people, it's like, that's like as easy as rolling out of bed. They're like, get social. I'm always social. And other people that takes discipline. That takes work. That is not their natural state. That is not their desired state, it might be said. And those of us that have read Personality Plus by Florence Littauer, certainly recognize the 4 major categories of personalities. And if you're maybe a sanguine personality, that might be more of your natural state. But if you're maybe melancholy choleric, maybe not so much. But I wanted to double click on that a little bit, because I don't know if you guys have ever read about or watched any of the documentaries about the blue zones. And these are areas of the world, they're called the blue zones, where they have the highest density per capita of folks over 100 years old and living vibrantly. And one of the things that is pointed out in there is, because the source of the documentary is like, what makes things different here? And some of it would be, I think, pretty intuitive, but one of the ones that's not too intuitive is they're social. And whether it's this region in Italy or another one was in Japan, they were full of community type involvement. And you know, that's kind of what we're doing here in a sense, right? We are doing this. This is a community get together for those of us that are like-minded, talking about HealthPointe and so forth. And there's also a very notable study done by Harvard that verified this as well. And that is the incredible health implications of social connections. And our time is too short this morning to maybe unpack that fully, but I wanted, you can obviously do your own research, you can watch documentaries, you can read books and so forth like that. But I just wanted to double click on that one, as I say, because that get social, I was so excited when that was one of the points that was brought out there, because that one, I think, for particularly for those that this does not come naturally, this is one to kind of work on just as much as you maybe work on how you shop at the grocery store, just as much as you work on, you know, getting your micronutrients tray put together for the week, just as much as you work on getting your 10,000 steps. You might have to make a deliberate, conscious effort to, you know, build social connections into your life. And so I wanted to comment on that. I don't know if you want to say anything else on that, Carol, or anyone else that's on here that wants to just unmute and chime in on that, but talking about that social aspect.
Well, I just want to tack on that social doesn't always have to be out the door either. You can be very social if you are stuck inside. Maybe you've had a snowstorm and you are locked in the house or whatever. You can still be very social. Get on the phone, get on FaceTime, you know, interact with people. If you're building business, you should be doing that anyway. If you are building any kind of career path, you should be social. And so I think one of the things that about the Personality Plus books that I love is kind of a love-hate relationship. I love it because it really spells out what we're dealing with. Sometimes I hate it, not for the book, but for how we respond to the book. And we say, well, I'm just not that way. I'm not social. I'm not a sanguine. I'm a melancholy. I'm more analytical. Well, that's fine. But you still do live in a world that is social. And even though you are a specific tendency, you still can be all of the other personalities too. You can lend to them. It's not meant to be a scapegoat. It's meant to be a person that understands where their strong suits or the easier things are for them, and where are the things that they have to work harder at. Because remember this, you're dealing with 4 personalities when you go out in the marketplace. And so, you know, you can't just be one thing, because if you're dealing with a choleric and you're all over the board sanguine, you're not going to relate to them. So, you know, you better, I always call it be chameleon. Whoever you're talking to, be like a chameleon, you know, act more like them, listen more, you know, talk more analytical. You can do that. So, yeah.
Absolutely. That's a super valid point. And I don't know who said this. I know we've heard it on an audio that says, you can change. You are not a rock. You know, it's just a meaning you know, and I love what you're saying there, Carol, in that book, and we've probably all done it ourselves, or we've heard other people say, oh, yeah, like you say, I'm a choleric and therefore I'm X, you know, or I act like X, and they use it sometimes, or we use it sometimes, you know, maybe I was guilty of this, where I use it as an excuse for my lack of development, or I weaponize it, and you know, I'm judgmental about that person because they're such and such of the 4 personalities, and that's not the purpose. And you can change. In fact, one of the experiences I had, and you know, we know it in the Personality Plus book by Florence Lutar, and guys, everybody on HealthPointe, you know, certainly if you're coaching, if you haven't read that book, run, don't walk to Amazon or whatever bookstore and get that. It's a quick read, it's a fun read. But in that book, you can take a test. And there is also another test that is often used in employment situations called a DISC, D-I-S-C. And it's the same thing. And I actually took that test in that setting twice. And one of the things that twice over a course of time, like I took it, I think when I was first employed, and then later there was another series of tests. And he said, this is really interesting. He said that your profile has changed. And he said, there's generally only 2 things that will cause such a significant change in your DISC profile. And he said, one would be like a traumatic event in your life. That could be one. And the other is a continuous education. And I said, well, check that box. and I was actually, and I'm not trying to put light on myself, but what happened is it kind of like blood sugar. It took out the highs and the lows, and it made it more, my results were more even. So instead of being like, I don't remember what I was at first, but I think it was probably along the lines of high choleric, high melancholy. So another way to describe that is I was a jerk and I knew I was a jerk. Okay, so that might be how you might describe that. I'm having a little fun with that, but that evened out to where my numbers, instead of being like 80% in those quartiles, were more evenly distributed: choleric, melancholy, sanguine, phlegmatic. And I like that, because and that's kind of that chameleon that you're talking about, Carol, where you still have your natural tendency, the way you're kind of wired as you're born. But guys, we learn in this program, even when it comes to genes, you know, that the theory that genes, you're just born with certain genetics. And we know that there's an epigenetic factor, huge factor on the expression of genes. Well, the same thing with your personalities and how you relate to people and the world. You might be born and wired with a certain natural tendency, but that doesn't mean you're a rock and you can't change. Read the books, get the education, get social, and it's a more beautiful world, quite frankly.
Okay,
So,
you're hitting my buttons.
Okay, chime in. Dave, good morning.
My granddaughter's 14 years old. She's phlegmatic. And obviously she's on her devices too much. And recently she got a job at a banquet hall in her community, just, you know, cleaning up dishes after different events. And within a few weeks, she wanted to quit because she didn't like all the people. And so one of the things we talked about was learning how to do the things we don't want to do. And so Carol kind of brought that up as if you need to push yourself a little bit to be social. But and then I said, the last thing you're going to do is quit that job, because you need to learn how about all these different people, so that I said, eventually your job in high school is to discover what the teacher wants and feed it to them. And so I don't know, she gave me a test score that she had gotten. And one of the games I played with her is I'll turn my hat around in different ways, and I'll pretend I'm her mom, which is melancholy. So even if she got kind of like a B, I'll yell at her for not getting an A, and I'll put my hat another way, and I'll pretend her older brother, who's also phlegmatic, and so like, who really cares? And then I'll flip my hat another way, and I'll tell her how proud I am and how excited I am, whatever. And we talk about the different personalities. And it's my belief, and I haven't really heard this talked about. You kind of hit on it, but it's my belief that to be a very effective leader, you need to be able to pull out any one of those 4 qualities when you need it. Because there's
Yes.
times when a sanguine like me needs to be phlegmatic and zip it and listen to what that person has to say. There's other times I need to be a leader. I need to be caloric and take charge. And I'll tell you, when you're dealing with other people, they usually want some data to back up what you're saying. So you have to have a little bit of melancholy. And so I've changed a lot in order to try to balance myself out, because when I was young, I was over the top, the sanguine, to the point where I probably irritated a lot of people. And so probably all those different personalities, if you're at the extreme level, you're at the irritation level. So ditto to everything that Carol said today.
Yeah, good point there on that, where you said, if you're on the extreme of any of those 4 personalities, you are very likely irritating people. I've never heard that put that way, but as you say it, David, that's true, isn't it? Right?
I believe so. And the other piece that I also tell people when I'm introducing this material to them, that it's important that you know what your operating system is in the world, how you operate. And once you understand personality plus and other people's personalities, when you're melancholy, whenever you are, that's opposite of me, it doesn't bother me as much. I just go, oh, he's wired that way. That's why he did that. Not a big deal. And so I found that it just tempered me a lot when I got a better understanding of the different personality styles. And as I often joke with I have a number of phlegmatics in my business and in my family. I just have he said, give me some space, because I have a really hard time getting into that zone. That's my, I'm happy and I don't want to do anything. Okay. I have a hard time getting into that zone. Anyways, okay. David's done.
We go back to meeting with people and find a need and fill it. And it's all about the other person. Ask questions, listen, wrap yourself around the other individual and their needs. Well, I think it's the same way with a personality. Find out, how was that person wired, and get around that. It's just like a need. That's a very big need, is for you to be able to relate to where that person is, because remember, they're the little kindergartner that you're sitting down with for the first time. They haven't had 10 years or 20 years or whatever of personal health books and audios and all that kind of stuff hanging around folks like you guys. They're coming out from the streets, and so it's our responsibility as leaders to really embrace what we're dealing with, asking the questions, finding out more about them, and then we know how to relate to them, because if we don't relate to them, we're never going to be able to bring them along, whether it be HealthPointe, business building, personal development, or whatever. We have to first be cognizant of where they're at and reach out to that. Then we can take them from where they are to where we want to take them, where we want them to go. So I think that ties right in with what David was saying. So thanks, David.
Yes,
you're welcome. And again,
absolutely.
all the things that we're talking about today, most people are operating where they're a wild stallion. Their horse is leading them. Their subconscious is just running the show, and they have no idea what they're doing.
Yeah.
And as you do all the things that Carol's talked about today, eventually, as Wim Hof would say, you become the rider of the horse.
Mhm.
I'm now mindfully doing the things I want to do throughout the day, rather than just unmindfully doing things throughout the day.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And, we're in here, we're a HealthPointe community, and, how does this all kind of tie together? And certainly it ties together very much so, well, in a number of ways. We're talking about, as one of the 8 points that Carol is talking about in terms of your own health, is be social. And so if you know your personality, you know the personalities of those people around you, that's going to assist you in being, having that element into your life, which is good for your health. The other way it kind of ties in is certainly for those of us that are building business, leading with HealthPointe, it certainly comes into play there, because we are, working to help people that want the help, and it makes a difference on how you come across, how relatable you are. And you might say, well, gee, I'm not a business owner, or I don't have interest in, I'm quote unquote just a client. Well, you know what? You're also influential, like it or not. We're all influential. And when you lose 5 pounds, 10 pounds, 20 pounds, 30 pounds, you better get ready, because people are going to be coming up to you and saying, how did you do that? And we call that PIF, pay it forward, right? You've been gifted something that, if you've had those types of results, you have the good fortune of turning around your health. And I think it's not necessary, it's not required, but it's certainly something to think about, that you pay it forward, whether or not you're officially a coach or not. And this doesn't need to be hard pressed on, because certainly if somebody comes up and asks you, and it's a family member or a friend, I mean, are you going to tell them to get lost and go figure it out on their own? No, you're going to probably be wanting to help. Well, now comes into play what we're talking about here. If your personality is, I don't know, let's just click on it real quick. If you're, uncontrollably sanguine, and that person wants some facts and figures, you're just like, hey, this is fun, ain't it great? And you have no
Why
facts
are
and
you
figures.
looking at me?
Just kind of picking up what you're laying down there, David, just picking it up. No, but again, if you're extreme on any of those, if you're just too fun loving, nothing else, well, that's probably not going to land very well with that person. On the other hand, if you're off the charts melancholy, and you're say, just want to hit them with a dictionary when they ask a simple question, and you give them tons of facts and figures and stuff like that, that might not help them get the next step. If you're super choleric and you just start yelling at them and tell them to just suck it up, cupcake, get going, that's probably not going to, even if you have good heart, good intentions. And then if you're phlegmatic and you're just this meek little, you just want to crawl away in your corner and not say anything, well, they're going to die on the vine, trying to get information from you. But you've got to kind of open up and at least share a little bit. So those are fun extremes on any of those 4 personalities, whether it's the phlegmatic, the choleric, the melancholy, or the sanguine. But I think whether you're working on your own health for socialization aspects and getting that going, whether you're a coach and business owner, certainly you've got to build that quote unquote soft skill. And even if you have no interest in that, but you're just benefiting from the program, you're going to have people come up and ask you. And I think, having some education and awareness of the 4 different personality types is really great. So with that, and I'm going to go melancholy on you guys. I'm going to go facts and figures and science corner. And as I do that, I'm going to do a screen share. I don't have any like big, presentation, so to speak, but I'm going to have some images here for those that are catching this later on YouTube, or any of those that are walking around actually able to look at your screen. And then I'll tee it up when I wrap up with either either Larry or Erica or Hank or all of the above that might want to speak afterwards. But with that, let me go into a screen share here. Give me one moment. Remember last time I did this, I had strange technical issues, and it's never pretty doing this. I'm doing it on my phone, but with that said, I will do my best. Okay, so this is Dr. Nasha Winters. And so what I was leading in and what I kind of left as a cliffhanger last week was that I am doing about a year-long course in what's called integrative oncology. And Dr. Nasha Winters heads up that program. I've spoken about her briefly. But Dr. Nasha Winters wrote a book called The Metabolic Approach to Cancer, and she heads up the Metabolic Terrain Institute of Health. So, how does this tie in? There's folks that are on the HealthPointe program that have cancer, and cancer is along with type 2 diabetes, is a very, epidemic level illness in certainly in the United States. And most of us know someone that has cancer. So this information can kind of tie into that. But Dr. Nasha Winters, again, you can do your own research on her, but briefly, her story was, as a young college student, she was on an MD track, conventional medicine. And she had some very, very aggressive symptoms that she went in to get checked out and to find that she had stage 3 ovarian cancer. She did a hard right turn in her career path ultimately, but it was led by her own research into what the cause of this was, what the root cause of her cancer was. And that was 32 years ago. And you can see she's very, very vibrant. And being in some Zoom meetings with her, I can tell you that she is absolutely healthy and radiant. It's incredible. So she's an incredibly intelligent person. And so she has built out a program that trains other clinicians, of which there's about 200, roughly 250 practitioners and clinicians that have been trained. And this resulted, by the way, because she went into private practice with her own metabolic approach to cancer, quickly developed a backlog of years, not weeks, not months, years of people trying to get in to see her. She can only see so many people. Obviously, it was a problem. She then developed a program where she would educate other MDs or practitioners, and that took some of the load where more people could provide care, but it still wasn't enough. Then she developed what's called an advocate program, and that's what I'm studying, where as an advocate program, you're working in concert with the practitioner, kind of as a coach, helping people with implementing a lot of the lifestyle choices that can help them on their metabolic approach. And that is what she is most known for. But just to give you an idea, just to leave off on that, last month, their site had over 35,000 inquiries for help. Okay, so right now there's about 400 plus advocates with our cohort. I'm cohort 6, and so there's, even with that, we're still kind of trying to empty the ocean with a teacup. It's going to take a lot of work. So, but that's her. And so there's a lot of talk and coverage in the metabolic approach to cancer about mitochondria. And with that, I want to mention this gentleman. This is Dr. Thomas Seyfried. He's got a number of books out, and when you're talking cancer, you can get into, it's another one of those maybe third rail topics. We joke about that, about topics that if you're getting together with people, family or whatever, they say, don't talk about, religion, don't talk about politics. I've added, don't talk about food, because that can get very tribal, what should you eat, what shouldn't you eat, and stuff like that. And there's a certain amount of that, actually not so much, but in cancer is, there's two basic schools of thought. There's what's called a somatic, and that's kind of the standard of care approach to cancer. And then there's the metabolic. And to integrate them both is arguably the best. It's not to be polarized in one camp or the other, but to look at it all. But this gentleman, Dr. Thomas Seyfried, is, he doesn't mind being a bit of a lightning rod. And so he'll make very clear statements that are based on his research. And one of his statements is that if you have perfectly healthy mitochondria, I'm going to get into what mitochondria is all about for those that aren't familiar with it, or I'm going to touch on it. I'm not going to do a deep dive on mitochondria. That could take us, the next 12 months, I think. But he's stated that if you have perfectly healthy mitochondria, you cannot get cancer. Now, that's going to, be a lightning rod. And I'm not saying that. HealthPointe's not saying that. That's this guy, Dr. Thomas Seyfried, and you can, do your research on him, where he got his undergrad, where he got his, doctoral work done, and so forth. And so I'm sorry, let me pause for a moment here. Okay, I'm going to perhaps need to mute. Sorry, guys, I'm doing this real time, and I've got some background noise that's going on here. Okay, getting back on track. So one of the statements that was made, and I want to give context to this because I might have already kind of misled some people. The statement was, if you took everyone that had cancer and say through the somatic approach, the standard of care, there was a pharmaceutical or a drug or an injection or a treatment or a chemotherapy or something that could knock out that cancer but not change anything else in that body. Not that human does not change anything else. It's just literally coming in and taking care of that symptom. How much longer would that individual live? Okay. And the point of this is not to give a hard, fast number. I've heard in the research out there that it is actually surprisingly small. And that's the point of this. Why is that? So I've heard numbers as little as 3 years. Now you go, good grief. If you cured cancer, you would only, on average, live another 3 years. How could that possibly be? What he's pointing out is that often the conditions that led to cancer is at the mitochondrial level. And if all you did was, quote unquote, cure the cancer, knock out that symptom, that result of poorly functioning mitochondria, then you have not affected the wave of mitochondrial dysfunction. And there will be other, as they call them, the 4 horsemen of death and disease, whether it be heart disease, cancer, neurological disorders, etc., that would kill that individual if that mitochondrial issue is not addressed. So I want to give context to that. That's what they're saying here. It doesn't matter whether it's 3 years or 5 years or 15 years. What they're pointing out here is that if all that was done is that symptom of mitochondrial dysfunction in their theory was taken care of, then you have not addressed the metabolic health of the individual, and they are still going to manifest inevitably another disease, be it cardiovascular, etc. Okay, so I want to make that clear, and let's get into some other things here. Okay, let's talk about mitochondria. Okay, I remember the first time I heard mitochondria, I actually didn't. It was kind of in one ear and out the other, and truly, and I'll probably come back to this a number of times on our walk and talk, because it's truly an amazing segment of the human body. All right, and I'm going to talk about this image briefly. But what are mitochondria? First of all, if you picture a cell, mitochondria is what's called an organelle. So if you picture a cell, inside the cell, you know, around the nucleus of the cell is organelles called mitochondria. Okay, mitochondria, you know, if you remember back from, which I don't, you know, any kind of like textbook chemistry in high school or something like that, they quickly say mitochondria are the powerhouse of the cell, meaning mitochondria create energy for the body. Now, that's not to say that that's any small thing. That's a huge thing. That is a massive thing. But mitochondria are so much, it's that, and also so much more. But just some fun facts on the mitochondria. So within the cell, there are hundreds and sometimes thousands of those organelles called mitochondria within each cell. There are literally trillions of mitochondria within the human body. Fun fact, despite they're tiny, I mean, these are inside the cell, the tiny nature of them, if you were to total up all the mitochondria in your body, it represents roughly 10% of the total body weight of the human body is your mitochondria. Okay, so let's talk about this image. Different areas of your body, different cells at different areas of your body will have different number of mitochondria within that cell. Now just think about this from the big picture. You're going to have mitochondria in the cell that make up the hair on your head. You're going to have mitochondria that are in your fingernails. You're also going to have mitochondria inside your muscles. You're going to have mitochondria inside the cells of your brain. How much energy production is needed in hair and fingernails? Not much, right? How much energy production is needed in muscles? Quite a bit, right? How much energy production is needed in the brain? A tremendous amount. So what that's pointing out is that in the cells of hair and fingernails and so forth, you're going to have less of these little organelles, less mitochondria in those cells than you're going to have in super energy demanding areas such as your brain. Okay, so mitochondria play a pivotal role in terms of, and this is one of the reasons it's in all aspects of metabolic health, certainly in cancer, they play a pivotal role in what's called apoptosis, which is the program death of a cell. You know, cells, we talk about it sometimes. I know we've talked about it in our walk and talks where, you know, we basically have all new skin within, I forget the number, is it every 30 days or every 90 days? I think it's all new skin basically every 30 days, all new, you know, basically blood every 90 days. Why? Because our cells are constantly regenerating. They are birthing, existing, dying, and that's called apoptosis. If you have unhealthy mitochondria, then that has an effect on apoptosis, meaning the pre-programmed cell death. And we know in cancer, the nature of cancer is, in a very simplistic view, is the uncontrolled replication of cells. That natural death of a cell that's one of the things that's not occurring, and they can proliferate, grow into a tumor, and we know that as cancer. And again, this is not the time or place to go into a deep dive on that, but rather to look at metabolic health in the big picture, look at the health of mitochondria in the big picture. So I'll wrap up with this, and then just have a super fun image. What are the ways, can you, first of all, improve the health and actually the quantity of mitochondria? Yes, you can. In fact, elite athletes like marathon runners, by the way, my wife, I think, is training, doing her long run here Saturday morning. She's training for a marathon. Marathon runners, elite athletes like that are known to have, great quantity of mitochondria as compared to somebody that's not as athletic of them. Okay, but what are some of the ways that you can improve the quantity and quality of your own mitochondria? Well, let's go through the list. Regular physical activity. Does that fit the bill in HealthPointe? Of course it does. We're on a walk and talk. Some of us are actually walking. So regular physical activity. A nutrient-rich diet. Does that fall into the purview of HealthPointe? Absolutely. Diets high in antioxidants, essential fats, and proteins, and other elements that protect against oxidative damage. Having a source of micronutrients and phytofactors. So we're talking whole plant foods, vitamins, minerals, all of those phytofactors. We talk about that in the Nutrilite XX supplement, that one of the differentiating factors between the Nutrilite brand and so many others is that Nutrilite, you're literally eating, what did I talk about last week? In the vitamin A component, the daily component of the XX, it was like eating, 61 average carrots to get that much vitamin A. Okay, so we're talking about dense micronutrients and plant phytofactors. So that's important to improve the health of your mitochondria. Adequate sleep. Carol, you mentioned this in your list as well. The importance of adequate sleep. That is where a lot of cellular regeneration and other processes take place. So adequate sleep. Here's another one you mentioned, stress reduction. Okay, whether it be just throughout your day, certainly carving out time for thoughts and meditation and prayer and still time and stress reduction. I know, Erica, you're on here. I remember once you did a phenomenal segment on box breathing. David, you've talked about Wim Hof. There are literally techniques and methodologies to reduce your stress. And sometimes if you have high stress, that can parlay into not adequate sleep. So maybe keeping a notepad next to your bed so that you write down any racing thoughts in your head. If you wake up and you're worrying, write them down on a piece of paper. You'd be amazed at how just getting that safely onto a piece of paper and out of your head will allow you to fall back to sleep. Build those types of habits, build those types of structures. And then lastly, the avoidance of toxins. And we've talked about things that we can do as far as toxins. We talked about the recent New England Journal of Medicine publication, I think it was in early March, about the effect of microplastics that are very pervasive in plastic bottles of drinking water, but also in other sources, plastic pipes. The importance of having as ours does, our eSpring water treatment system is certified to take out those toxins. It's certified to take out PFOS, which is Michigan has a distinction of being the #1 state in the United States for PFAS contamination, made possible largely because of the uniqueness of our aquifers in Michigan. But are you doing the things that you can do to take out those toxins? Because you can get sleep, you can eat well, and all that kind of stuff. And if you're taking in toxins from other environments, then that can curtail your progress. And there's a lot of other sources of toxins, and sometimes we don't have control over that, right? There's things that can be in other sources of exposure that we maybe don't have as much control over it. But often there's kind of the 80-20 rule, where you can knock out 80% of the toxins in terms of this topic, are in your control. The other 20, like we talked about on the water, somebody I saw on the list of things to avoid, they said avoid beer because beer is made with a lot of water. And I said, maybe if I was drinking a keg a day, I would pay attention to that piece of information, but I don't drink that much beer. But you know what I do drink a lot of? Just flat out water. And we cook with water, we drink with water. So I'm not going to stress out about not drinking beer or not eating filter fish like a mussel or clam because they might have microplastics in them. I don't eat that much. Most people don't, but we do drink water every day. We do cook with water every day. And so that's a good way to avoid a big part of toxins. Okay, wrapping up with just kind of a fun fact. We've all seen the scenes probably if you've ever watched a James Bond movie, 007 or something like that, where the villain, the evil spy he's captured. And then what does he do? He's got this cyanide capsule between his teeth and he chomps down on that, foams at the mouth as this very grotesque picture is showing. Sorry, guys. This is for a dramatic impact. And boom, they're dead. Well, turns out that how does cyanide work? That is working by impacting the respiration rate, basically affecting the respiration of mitochondria. Remember, mitochondria at their core are the energy production little organelles for every function within your body. Every function within your body. And what the cyanide is doing is it is basically putting a stop to that respiration of the organelle, and death occurs, almost, within minutes. So remember that if you have to ever wonder, are mitochondria important? Should you be taking care of your mitochondria? Just remember this image in terms of the answer to that question. Mitochondria are incredibly important. I'm going to get out of my screen share here and get back to the main segment here. Okay, there we go. So that was a bit of a science corner, a bit of a deep dive. Ultimately, starting with the question, if cancer was eradicated, but nothing else was addressed in terms of the overall metabolic health of that individual, what would be the expected amount of years that the individual would live? And again, it's not about getting into, is it 3 years or 5 years or 13 years or whatever. It's pointing out that what's very important is, whether it's for cancer or for diabetes or for overall metabolic health, is to do those things to keep your mitochondria as healthy as possible, because they have so much importance in terms of our overall health. With that, I'm going to wrap, and I took so much time. We're kind of wrapping up.
One quick statement.
Yes.
Dr. Vicky, when she would explain HealthPointe, would talk about mitochondria as being like Pac-Man. and that they would eat something as you did HealthPointe in order to activate HealthPointe to work for you. It's been a long time since I had that, but I do remember her talking about it.
Yes. Yep. Yeah, it truly, guys, and I will do this because I think it's just inherent in the HealthPointe program. It's very good to get, you know, some of the information I might cover might be, you know, a little bit too much or too boring, but I really don't think you can risk not being aware of mitochondria. And so I'm sure do a number of segments that kind of help us over time. Again, if people are watching this on YouTube, you know, they can watch more than one episode and kind of build their own awareness and knowledge of it. And again, you know, if we want to just really get simple with it, if you're doing the HealthPointe program as, you know, if you're in a 6-week cycle, if you're in lifetime maintenance, wow, you are just hitting all those elements of good practices for optimal mitochondrial health, no doubt about it. So with that, anybody else? Larry, Erica, Hank, hey, there's Larry. Good morning, Larry. Oh, I think you're still muted, Larry. I think you're still muted. There you go.
Okay. All right. Good morning, everybody. Hey, very good information. You know, I felt like I need to talk for the phlegmatics that are out there. You know, actually, we have a pretty nice personality, but they did talk about phlegmatics. If you want to know about personalities, you have to listen to Florence Littenauer's Personality Plus, but flags are pretty good people. Anyway, one of the things that I wanted to say was that Carol had recommended that we listen to an audio for those of us that have access to it. And one of the audios was on HealthPointe, and what the presenter said was commitment to a discipline is more important than the discipline. And I think that's where we get to in HealthPointe, is we make a commitment to the discipline. And that really gets us to that point. That's like that cue or the trigger that gets us started on doing the things that we need to do. And HealthPointe is a program that helps us to do that. And I thought that was, you know, we become committed to that discipline of doing HealthPointe. You know, if you've ever been involved in sports, and those of us that have been involved, they always used to say, winners never quit and quitters never win. That little statement like that. And that's what we do. You know, sometimes it takes you a little longer to get to your goal, to the point that you want to get to. But if you're committed to it, if you'll stay with it, then eventually you will get there. You know, and one of the other things before I get off was that they asked a question about, okay, if you run into a problem, you know, we're good at, as long as we get as many days in a row in as doing a habit. But we have problems when we get to that day when we don't do it. And the question was, okay, so when is the best time to get started? Well, right after the day that you stop getting your number of days in. Immediately start right away. And so, you know, I thought that those were some of the things, you know, commitment to the discipline is more important than the discipline. Thought that might be something that might be helpful.
I love it, Larry. I love how you kind of bring this home and kind of end with a note with, on the one hand, how important it is to have a commitment to the practice. And on the other hand, in HealthPointe, certainly it's very a forgiving program. It's, as you say, if you kind of fall off, when's the best time to kind of get back on, you know, right away, you know, get back on right away. It's inevitable in a journey. It's like any journey, whether you're driving across the United States in a car or whether you're making a journey on a path up a mountain and through the woods and up, it's inevitable that you'll have, you know, you'll have a flat tire, you'll have a barrier in your path, you'll have an event. And it's certainly the case with HealthPointe. And, you know, you're going to fall and you just get right back up and get back on. It's a very forgiving program. So thanks for that, Larry. And if there's nothing else, guys, we will give a wrap on this, and I'll go in 3, 2, 1. Okay, guys. Well, that's it for this Saturday. Looking forward to next time, same place, same time, next Saturday, 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. See you then. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Hey guys, see you.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Eric.
Thank you.